this freshman group, again, you see these guys through the recruiting process and you know they're talented, but to see them come in and jump in and compete this fall, how much fun was that to watch those guys kind of show, hey, we're here, we're ready to compete?
Well, the confidence. And the number one thing that separates, and you guys have been around all this stuff so long, is physicality, right? If you got a guy that's just not strong enough, he's just not big enough to be at a level, you might see it with a basketball player, a football player, any sport. The one thing that this freshman class is it's big enough and strong enough. And they're on a mission. I think maybe the most impressive thing about it is, they know that they're here to contribute, and it's not one day we'll help out.
Yeah.
A lot of these guys have an edge and have a competitive spirit that they want to be in the middle of things, and it's been great to see them work like that and continue to grow. Sometimes you don't always get that. You get guys that kind of get happy to be somewhere and think it's going to be easy. And we've had a lot of freshmen kind of put in work every day and work at a level where they expect to make an impact on the club.
Yeah, we talked about Eric. Talk about Ike's development. Obviously he's always been a hitter, but to see his development behind the plate, that's a huge part of this process, isn't it, for you guys?
Yeah, Ike's a really good athlete, and he loves baseball. And anytime you combine those two things, the growth and the work and all that stuff, usually starts to take over. Ike's developed every year at something.
Yeah.
And he's really, watching him call the games and watching him run the pitching staff has been something that has been really impressive. And he uses his hitter's mind to get hitters out. And he's just a student of the game, and everything has gotten better. Everything, blocking, throwing, and the way he's led pitchers, that's been really exciting. He had a good ball swing in the bat too.
Yeah.
But we all have really enjoyed watching all those other things really keep ticking up.
Which talks about dominating the routine play. Anybody do that consistently and also make the kind of the highlight reel plays that flash this fall?
Yeah, I think when you look around the field, we know Cade Ballew's a good outfielder. We know Bristol Carter is a really good outfielder that can make that, gap-to-gap kind of play. Eric Rivera, Derek Fabian, Eric Snow, those guys have been really, really solid at the routine play and going and throwing on the run and things like that. Eric had some really hard balls. That Pensacola weekend, I think the first inning ended up with one of those terrible choppers over the bag. Maybe it's fair, maybe it's foul. There's runners on base. And, so we've had a lot of guys do it. I'd say probably the most impressive fall in every one of those aspects was probably Rivera.
Just remember, he kind of jumped out, steady throughout the fall, a guy that can give you multiple positions. What do you see out of him now that he's kind of gone through that first fall?
An ability to swing the bat, explosiveness, toughness. This kid is an incredibly explosive and tough kid. He's always hit, and throughout the recruiting process, we have always been sold on him as an infielder, that he was going to be able to make that jump. We love the way he's developed, and we like his versatility. He's a good enough runner. He's probably a 6'6", 60 type guy where he can go in the outfield and help us at times, but he brings 3 or 4 positions to the table. He brings power, speed, and toughness, and that's a pretty good combination.
What did you learn about Kleps? Because it was not good early on. He had his struggles, but he really turned it around by the end. He was playing about as good as anybody.
Yeah. Addison was a guy that we ended up picking up kind of late. He had kind of opened up his recruiting, and it had been after we had lost a couple high school guys the year before, not thinking we were going to be looking for a shortstop. And we've learned a lot about him. I think the most impressive thing was to come across the country and have a little bit of struggle in the beginning, and to just continually work every day with a purpose. And then the at-bats, we all learned that he's got good vision and he can really have an at-bat. His at-bats were really, really consistent, and his defense really grew over the fall, which is exciting. Guys that want to be here to grow and want to be here to play ball. And his development makes you feel like he came here to play baseball.
Yeah. We haven't talked about Lucas yet, but a switch hitter, a guy that potentially could be in the middle of a lineup. What did you see out of him this fall? How valuable is a guy like that potentially to keep teams from loading up either right or left against him?
I think we felt it earlier in the fall, right? Without having Cooper, and it's like, okay, who's going to hit behind Ike? And there's a calming presence for Lucas, right? You can't go left on left, and you can't go right on right against him, and he can sit there and have it at bat. We have a lot of respect for Lucas sitting in the middle of a lineup, and there's something you can't really replace that.
Yeah.
So he doesn't stress out. He knows how to have an at bat. He can do damage if you give him a mistake. I think the other thing that's really enjoyable about Lucas and Eric Snow from that standpoint is, those guys grew up Auburn fans, and being at Auburn means a lot to them. And I think that always helps. When a guy, he's comfortable with the area, he knew what he was getting into, and he's really fitting great.
Is there something positive to be said for still so much competition because of the pushing guys? Butch said you feel good about 12 guys probably, but it's still kind of figuring out where each one fits. Is that a positive though because of the competition level that kind of keeps going?
Yeah, I think it's a positive and I also think every player in that locker room knows who some of the best players are. And I think that's also a good thing. There's not a lot of confusion on who's got some track record, who's some talented guys that we brought in. And I think they're sharpening each other. And I think one of the reasons why we're not exactly sure where all the pieces are going to line up is because there is some versatility positionally, which is something that we value a lot in the world where you don't know who's going to get drafted, who's not, and stuff. So we got some guys that can bounce around and play a few different positions. And you start with looking at Ike, and we talked about Rember, and we talked about some of those infielders being able to play all three positions. I think that really helps give you some options when the year starts to get the best bats in line.